before we get to any of this, it is time to talk about Harry and Meghan. And let's go straight over to the West Coast to talk to our royal expert, West Coast correspondent, brilliant journalist, Kinsey Schofield. Hi, Kinsey.
Hi, Kevin. I just want to start out by saying that I do think that mental health is something that we should take seriously. I think children's mental health is something we should take seriously. And in the future, I would like to have a very serious conversation between you and I about that. We could do it on my podcast, wherever.
Yeah, sure.
I'm happy to delve into that and take that very seriously. But the disclaimer here is that I don't think that Harry and Meghan are in a position to be the authorities on it. I appreciate the message, but are they the right people to deliver it? I believe that the answer is no.
Well, indeed, and you're quite right. Absolutely, no one would want to diminish or degrade the importance of mental health issues. But here is basically the reason we're talking about this is Harry and Meghan. We talked about it last week, but their full interview on CBS's Sunday morning show aired yesterday in America, and they formed some sort of parents group for the parents of kids who've committed suicide due to online harm. I mean, so I've watched it, and I'm going to watch it again now, and it's all sort of nebulous. I can't quite work out what it is they're trying to say. It seems like a perfectly worthy cause. But anyway, let's remind ourselves of some of the stuff that Harry and Meghan said to Jane Pauley on Sunday morning on CBS yesterday.
See you touch your husband's hand in just the way I knew that you would be looking after each other if I went places. But the connection that you have with people is they know you had suffered too, personally. Contemplating killing yourself is what suicidal ideation was. And I'm dancing around this because I can see you're uncomfortable with my even going there. Do you?
I understand why you are, though. I wasn't expecting it, but I understand why you are, because there is a through line, I think. And when you've been through any level of pain or trauma, I believe part of our healing journey, certainly part of mine, is being able to be really open about it. And I haven't really scraped the surface on my experience, but I do think that I would never want someone else to feel that way.
So yeah, this is, I think their organisation is called the Parents Network, and this interview took place at some place near Santa Barbara at a rather nice kind of sort of hut or cabin in the hills above the above the sea there, the Pacific Ocean, and it was Harry and Meghan went to meet a group of parents who, all of whom have suffered the tragedy of losing their children, who they later found out were kind of influenced by online activity. So it's a parents network, but I couldn't quite work out exactly what it was that this organisation was going to do. Is it trying to set out to protect kids in this respect, or is it just after the fact they're going to look after parents? I wasn't quite sure. But to be honest with you, this was when she talked of her suicidal thoughts. We know when that was. She says it's when she was in Britain and everybody was against her and she didn't like what was going on with the royal family. We later learned that she thought they were a bit racist and all this sort of thing. Now, again, you're right. We have to accept what she says. But when Piers Morgan said, and this was, 3-4 years ago, when he said, well, sorry, I don't believe her, he said that he thought she was making this stuff up for publicity, to play the victim. She sort of got in touch with the head of ITV and said that he should be fired for this. And indeed, although he wasn't fired, well, he kind of was fired because he refused to say sorry. So whilst every sympathy with Meghan for her suicidal thoughts and every sympathy with this project, she's not very good on freedom of speech, is she? If someone wants to say, well, I don't quite believe you, she goes about trying to get them sacked from their job.
Exactly. And yeah, so the Parents Network program, they call this a free support service for parents in the US, UK, and Canada dealing with social media's impact on children. I believe they also introduce other parents that have lost children to each other so that they can kind of utilize each other's strengths and lean on each other after this horrific incident. But, you know, if the objective is to put a spotlight on children that are no longer with us here on this earth because of online bullying, I feel like a much more powerful message would be to focus on those families. I've said this before, I think it's worth repeating. Meghan Markle was suicidal in a castle and fled to America, where she lives with two beautiful babies, rescue chickens, and palm trees that hold hands, and a Montecito mansion. She has a loving husband. She survived. She's thriving. These parents go to bed every night with empty beds and bedrooms where their children used to sleep. I think it's wildly inappropriate to make this interview about Meghan. The reporter knows if she asks a question like that, the interview is going to become about Meghan. Meghan is savvy enough to know that now the line that everybody's going to use is that she's only scraped the surface, which sounds like a veiled threat to the royal family about what she could say going forward about her time in the British royal family. I think Harry and Meghan not only lack credibility in this particular topic, I think that they lack self-awareness. Where is their concern for their family's mental health? Catherine's, when Omid Scobie was accusing her of racism. You're going to stomp out cyberbullying, yet you continue to include model Chrissy Teigen in your world, in your friendship circle, in your jam promotion. Chrissy Teigen told a 16-year-old girl on the internet to go kill herself. Kevin, I mean, that's the child
that's
being
the problem,
bullied
isn't
right
it?
there. I mean, so I just think that these two are not the vehicle. I applaud the program. These two are not the vehicle.
Yeah, I mean, we've got to be, you know, I don't want to have a go at the reasons they're doing this. I think their hearts might be in the right place, but there's always this suspicion. Looking at that, there's always this suspicion that it's all about them. This is a way that they've devised to make them look like caring, sharing people who really, really do care about the plight of children online and the plight of parents who lose their children. And, you know, who are we to say that they don't? But it does come across to me like a good excuse to make them look like great people on American television. Simple as that.
And I would also suggest that based on past activity, it seems that Harry and Meghan utilize extremes. They weaponize extremes so that we are in a position to hesitate critiquing them or to question them. Racism. I was paralyzed after the Oprah Winfrey interview. I was not in a position to question whether or not the royal family was racist. We all had to take Meghan Markle's word for it after that interview. Otherwise, we were told that we were racist for not pushing back on that claim. Suicide, mental health. I'm never going to touch that because it is such a sensitive topic.
Yeah.
But it's as if that they use these extreme topics to kind of pin you in a corner where you're unable to question their motives, unable to question their sincerity and the authenticity of their objectives.
And what I'd like to see, Kinsey, is exactly what the Parents Network has achieved in 6 months' time or a year's time. How many times have we heard them before launching their various projects? And you never really hear of it again. Archwell seems to specialise in great charity initiatives that never come to very much. What has the Archwell Foundation really achieved in the big picture ever, really? Just seems to be virtue signalling announcements. We're going to do this. We're going to help that. We're going to help these people. We feel so sorry for these people. Right, we've been on TV now. Let's go. Let's move on. Nothing else ever seems to happen, does it?
Remember Meghan's 40 for 40 initiative for her 40th birthday? This weekend was her 43rd birthday, and on her 40th birthday, she launched with Melissa McCartney, the actress, that campaign where women were going to mentor younger women for 40 hours. There was no follow-up. You know, there were supposed to be these big celebrities involved mentoring younger women. We never got a follow-up to that. I think you're absolutely right. There is a blitz, a PR blitz to announce something good that they're doing, but and then they'll add themselves to other charities that are already pursuing something. Remember when Archwell donated funds or something to a global vaccination group during the COVID pandemic so that vaccines were going to be available worldwide. Archwell kind of took that whole campaign and took credit for it when they just kind of inserted themselves in something that existed already. So we haven't seen Archwell do anything start to finish. I don't really think we've seen anything other than maybe they built a playground. They helped build a playground in Texas after there was a shooting at an elementary school there. But when it comes to tangible evidence, when it comes to proof, there's little to none over what Archwell actually executes.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure they've achieved some admirable feats, but as you've just been describing, but not a whole lot really. Put it this way, the noise they make about their charity efforts far outweighs the reality of what they actually seem to achieve. Do you see what I'm saying?
I do. And I also think that you and I are almost on a weekly basis having a conversation about how Prince Harry would like to get back in the door with the royal family, get back into the royal fold, how ultimately that's all he knows. And there's a homesickness. There is really a lack of purpose without that part of his life. And I sit down and I watch a conversation like that, and I know that Meghan has to know when she's making statements like, oh, I haven't even scratched the surface, it's going to bring up the Oprah Winfrey interview. Now everybody's rehashing some of the most damaging to your relationship with your family commentary. And what is Harry thinking? What is Harry thinking? Well, I guess I better not hop on that plane for my reunion with my dad that I was pursuing later in the summer. I mean, I think we have to accept that they have no intention of reuniting with the royal family because their actions say otherwise. They continue to speak in a way that harms the family and that makes people critical of the family. I just don't think that there is going to be a reunion on the horizon if they continue to behave this way.
Yeah, last question, kind of moving on. I think we spoke about this briefly last week. So they've announced their next weird pretend royal tour. So having a few months back gone to one of the most dangerous countries in the world, Nigeria, we've got to hand it to them. They found somewhere that's more dangerous, Colombia. This from a guy, Prince Harry, who says, I will never bring my wife, and by extension, I think his kids. He hasn't mentioned his kids, but he won't bring his wife back to Britain because he says it's too unsafe, because he won't get a gun guard from the police. He says that that makes it way too hazardous to bring his family back to Britain. And yet he's off to Nigeria, and now he's going to even more dangerous Colombia. What goes on in his head?
Yeah, I think just this is further proof that this is all a hissy fit that Prince Harry is pitching because he wants to make his father look like the bad guy. The Daily Beast reported over the weekend that Harry really felt like the king should step in the way that the Queen had stepped in for Prince Andrew to ensure that he would continue to get security. But the king, from the king's standpoint, Harry has entered into litigation, and at this point it would be absolutely inappropriate for him to try to step in and to manipulate the circumstances after litigation has been brought. To obtain security in the UK, Harry, like any other high-powered visitor that wants police protection, just has to give 28 days notice to the British security forces. He has to list the location he intends to visit, present a detailed itinerary of his plans. He can use private security, but private guards can't be armed. And look, I think that he is immensely safe, much safer in the UK than he is in Colombia.
Of course he is. This ongoing legal row he has going with the British government, with the Home Office here, is purely down to his status. What he can't take, this is my view, but I know a lot of people agree with me, he cannot take that he now has officially a lower status than the rest of the royal family. In other words, the rest of the royal family, the main royals, when they go anywhere, they get armed police protection. Because he's given up front-line royal duties and moved to California, he doesn't get it anymore, and he can't take it. He wants to be the same as his brother, indeed his Uncle Andrew. And when you say the Queen tried to help Prince Andrew, well, for all Andrew's many faults, and let's face it, they are far too many, he's never implied that the royal family are racist. Whereas with Harry, it's a kind of a different story. So he made his own bed, and he's going to have to lie on it in a little while in Colombia. I hope he enjoys it. Kinsey, great to talk to you. Kinsey Schofield there, royal expert. What do you reckon? Harry and Meghan.